Hey everybody, I'm Anna McEwen. And now for Bob Switzer with the Epic Narrative.
And thank you for that. Always a pleasure to have you guys here hanging out on the Epic Narrative. We're closing in on the end of Numbers, which means we only have one more book to get through for this season. So who knows? We could be done next week. No, we're not going to be done next week. Well, actually, we might be done with Numbers next week because ideally, we're going to just deal with the rest of Numbers chapter 20 today, verses 14 to 21. So, yeah, I think probably next week we'll finish up Numbers, then we'll hit Deuteronomy, and man, another season will be in the books. But we have got, I would say, at least a dozen more episodes. Bob's like, oh yeah, at least. I know. It's true. We've been, honestly though, right? This is different from any other season that we've done in that we have moved through a lot of verses all at once because we're not breaking down every single law and every representation of that law and how it's seen in Jesus or whatever. It's every prophetic insight that's ever been written about them, because that's not what we do here. But we have seen that God has been good and that he honors people's freedom and that when he gives you authority, he doesn't pull it from you just because you abuse it or use it wrongly or make a decision that isn't consistent with the kingdom of God. And I think we've seen that amongst many preachers in today's world as well. And sometimes we wonder about it, right? We think, why didn't God stop them? Why didn't God stop them? Well, it's because he is a God of love, and love has freedom, and you can't give someone authority and then take it from them every time they misuse it, because if you do that, you're not actually giving them freedom of choice. It's just as manipulative as any other dictator. So I actually had sorry, Bob's like, no. Had an interesting little back and forth with a friend of mine about freedom, because I really believe God's love ultimately wins everyone. So you can choose salvation now, or ultimately, I do believe ultimately everyone will be saved. I think that's what Jesus died for. I know that might open up a whole can of worms, and theologically, some of you may just bail right now, but I have that mindset, right? And he was like, well, then God's just as much a dictator as any other dictator, because he forces everyone to ultimately comply to his love. And I thought, well, that's hadn't really thought about it that way. And I do always appreciate this guy's thoughts, which is why I hang out with people who don't think like me. But I think for me, when I processed that, I was like, yeah, God doesn't. I think God will continually give people choices to choose love. I don't think he gets offended if someone rejects his love and then says, fine, you're never going to get another offer. You're never going to get a chance for redemption. I think God continues to give chances for redemption that we don't even know about, because we are not privy to those realms. But I guess only time will tell. Sorry if I messed up your morning routine with those thoughts, but here we go. We're in Numbers chapter 20, verses 14. It says this: Moses sent messengers from Kadesh to the king of Edom, saying, this is what your brother Israel says. You know all about the hardships that have come on us. Our ancestors went down to Egypt. They lived there for many years. The Egyptians mistreated us and our ancestors. But when we cried to the Lord, he heard our cry and sent out an angel and brought us out of Egypt. Now we are here at Kadesh, a town on the edge of your territory. Please let us pass through your country. And he goes, well, I'll just read it. And we will not go through any of your fields or vineyards or drink water from any well. We will travel along the king's highway and not turn to the right or the left until we have passed through your territory. But Edom answered and said, you may not pass through here. If you try, we're going to march out and attack you with a sword. Israelites then replied, we will go along the main road then. And if our livestock drink any of your water, we will pay for it. If we only want to pass through on foot, nothing else. Again they answered, you may not pass through. Then Edom came out against them with a large and powerful army. Since Edom refused to let them go through their territory, Israel turned away from them, went a different way. Now, interesting conundrum here. Where's the cloud at this point? Now, the very next set of verses, and we'll deal with those later, we see that Aaron dies, and most sages, traditionalists say that when Aaron died, the cloud disappeared, and they were basically under the direction of Moses from that point on, that their 40 years in the wilderness was coming to a close, probably 1 or 2 years left. So where's the cloud? If the cloud led them through Edom, wouldn't they have gone? So something about this is it's just an interesting question. Moses sends a message. This to me is a sign of courtesy and honor, because you remember the Edomites are cousins, right? They're from the line of Esau. He calls them brother, which is a generic term used for all relatives as a general reminder that they are related by blood, that they're not just good friends. This is what your brother Israel says. Sorry, I had to find that. Verse 14. He says, we're going to pass through. In other words, we're not going to cause any damage. We're going to walk on the road. He makes another thing that says we're going to walk. In other words, we won't ride our horses. We won't drive with extra weight or anything on our camels, that sort of thing. We're just going to walk. We're not going to rush through. A lot of times when you're moving quickly with 1 million people or more, you're going to cause all kinds of damage to roads, all that kind of stuff. So he was like, listen, we're just going to walk. We're not going to rush, which I imagine is a really long line of people. It would fill up the road. It's going to cause a disruption either way. I think Moses understands that. And I think because they are relatives, he wants to honor that heritage, that bloodline, and he says, hey, this is who we are, this is what we want to do, please let us go through. We won't go off the road, which oftentimes was done, right? As a traveler, you'd be traveling along, you'd see a field, and you'd go off the beaten path, and you'd go down into this field and maybe look for some extra grain. Maybe you look for some plants, edible plants, some roots. You would forage for berries along the way just to make your trip a little easier. And of course, water was a big deal. As you walked, things would get dusty, things are dry. I mean, the other day we were at a beach, and this guy was riding his bike. Now, he was at least as old as I was. He was probably older. And he was riding his bike like, I don't know, it was a long way. Like over 30 miles. He was going to ride this bike, and he was about halfway done. Evidently, he took off on this trip, and he only had one water bottle, not a large one, just the kind that you'd buy, at a case of water, case of 24 or whatever. So I offered him some water, and man, he was like, well, yeah, I'll take one, and I gave it to him, and he drank it right away, and he goes, well, I might have been thirstier than I thought. I'll take you up, if you don't mind, I'll take you up on that offer for a second bottle. I was like, absolutely. I gave him another bottle of water. Water it's just essential to life. So you can imagine 1 million plus people walking through your towns, even if they stay on the highway, they're going to come across needs for water. And what Moses says here is, let us pass through. We won't go into any fields. We won't go into the vineyard. In other words, pick some grapes so that we stay hydrated. Or drink water from any well. So where will they get water? Well, some Some sages believe that they will get it from the rock, that the rock is actually following them. And I brought that up last week, I think, when we talked about them striking the rock. A lot of people believe that the rock rolled along, so to speak, along with them, or was always not necessarily like in the camp, but it was close by, available. And I always kind of like that idea just because it sounds really mysterious and freaky, but be really cool in a movie. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he was just saying we will always buy water, and that's what he reiterates the next round when they're like, "No, you can't come through here. Absolutely not." Now, sometimes it's not a good idea to remind everyone of what you've been through. Like he opens up this letter with, "Hey, just a reminder, not only are we relatives, but we're the ones who went down to Egypt. We're the ones who stayed there for 400 years. We're the ones that were abused by the Egyptians. We're the ones that were let out by God. We're the ones who all the miracles happened for. We're the one like, oh, and by the way, don't forget you're our cousins." Sometimes people don't like to be reminded about your successes or your journey. Now, I don't, it's why he did it. I don't know. It's not like the Edomites, didn't know who they were or were completely unaware of what had happened over the last 400 years. I mean, their awareness of that line of their cousins was always really strong from the moment that Jacob told Esau, "Yes, I will follow you home and come under your protection, come alongside you, work with you." And then he just turned, took a hard left and went somewhere else. From that point on, the Edomites were never big fans. They saw Jacob and his line as people who double cross you, people who don't keep their word. And that reputation went down through the ages. And so when they were down in Egypt, the Edomites, they didn't think it was a bad thing. They believed that in essence they were the only ones left for the promises to come through. They were, the rest of that line was down in Egypt, enslaved, coerced into giving up their freedoms, and so now they're back in town. They're back in town, and they write you a letter and say, "Hey, don't forget us. We're pretty awesome, and we've been through a lot, but God's on our side. By the way, can we come through your land? Listen, we're not going to cause any damage to your land. We won't go off the road. We won't pick your grapes. We won't, drink water from your well, but we want to walk through the King's Highway, the major highway." Like I said, you put 1 million people on there, it's basically a roadblock until they're done going through there. It's kind of like, do you remember those protests or whatever, the truckers protests or the tractors over in Europe? Man, that was crazy, right? They get on the highway and they're going to putz along at 35 miles an hour and you aren't getting by them. And it was such a long line. It went for miles. And if you were behind them, you were behind them. You weren't going anywhere else. You just weren't. You were just going to truck along right behind them. And that's basically, I'm guessing, what a lot of the Edomites were like. No, we can't let him go down the King's Highway. We'll never see the light of day. It'll take them, a year to get through. It won't take them a year, but so they say no, and let me just make sure I quote this. But Edom answered, no, Moses. Oh, there it is. Okay, yes. Edom answered and said, "You may not pass through here. If you try, we will march out and attack you with the sword." And that word sword was a reference to the fact that was a promise given to Esau from Jacob. That the sword would never pass from him. So for them, they're calling on their heritage. It wasn't, I know it's a threat of war as well, but it was also a reference point back to that promise that came from what little blessing was left after Lot stole the blessing. Or Jacob. Oh, yes, Jacob stole the blessing from Lot. Sorry. Jacob stole the blessing from Esau. So this is a reference for them back to that point. Like, listen, you guys reminded us of all the blessings you got, all the miracles that have been happening for you. Let's just go all the way back to the fact that you stole that from our dad. You stole that from our forefather. Just remember. So the reason why we're refusing to let you through is because you stole everything from us. And we don't want you coming through our land, and we don't want you stealing anything else. Also, we'll go to war with you. So then, let's see. They counter proposal, right? They were like, listen, we will avoid all the cities then. We won't go on the King's Highway. We'll go, basically, we'll take the back roads. We will stay away from all of this. But, again, the answer was a no. And it just goes to show you that sometimes it's not a good idea to remind people of their past. And sometimes you gotta pick your timing as to when you want to go through the list of blessings that the Lord has given you. I mean, some people just can't, I don't know. Timing's important for a lot of things, right? I mean, you can say things that are funny one day, but if you don't do it in that moment and you decide, you know what, I'm going to recreate that moment, I'm going to do it again because it was really funny, and it's not, right? It just totally falls flat. The other day, I mean, I was reminded yesterday, ran into somebody, I'd said some things to his wife I thought was funny. Not funny. He was like, hey, my wife was really upset by what you said. I was like, oh, crap. Oh, Robert, you did it again. Timing is so important. So I think sometimes when I read through this, sometimes it's in some way, I should say, the Edomites' response makes sense. Like, listen, we get it. You supposedly were chosen, but as far as we're concerned, you stole it. We should be the promised ones. But so be it. Don't come through our town. You're not welcome here. We may be related, but we don't have to be nice to you. And we probably all have some relatives that have been like that in our past, where it's like, you know what? What you guys did, what you guys said, not a good thing for us. And we prefer if you don't come through. Or, we'd prefer if you don't come to the wedding. You ever been to weddings where certain relatives weren't invited? Yikes. That can make things real awkward, can't it? I know. Or even a Thanksgiving meal where it's like everyone's invited except for the particular cousin or that or a family that, they used to come all the time and now not so much. Yeah. Anyways, kind of that kind of feel, but it's on a much larger scale. And ultimately, after that second no, Edom actually does send an army down to Kadesh where they were standing, and they said, no, you're not. So Israel turned away and went the other direction. Again, that's what makes me think, all right, where is the cloud at this point? Is it even there? Makes me think it's not. Especially given what the sages say about the next group of circumstances here. But it makes me think that basically they were under the direction of Moses at this point, which is another reason why I would think Moses would have sent the letter, because it was something he was trying to figure out. Can we go? This makes most sense. I wonder if we can do this. You know what? Let me send a letter. They're our cousins. Before we just go walking down the highway and stir up trouble, possible trouble. We have a sordid history. So let's just check it out. And it didn't work out. So they turned and went the other direction. And now, in these next verses, 22, the whole Israelite community set out from Kadesh and came to Mount Hor. Now, Mount Hor is near the border of Edom. And the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will not enter the land I give to the Israelites, because both of you rebelled against my command in the waters of Meribah. Get Aaron and his son Eleazar and take them up to Mount Hor. Remove Aaron's garments, put them on his son Eleazar, for Aaron will be gathered to his people. He will die there. So Moses did as the Lord commanded, and they went up to Mount Hor in the sight of the people of the community and removed his garments, etc., etc. They came down the mountain, and the whole community learned of Aaron had died, and the Israelites mourned him for 30 days. Now, so Aaron gets replaced, right? And he's taken to heaven. So on their way around Edom, they go to Mount Hor, which is a spiritual location for them. It says that Aaron gathered the people. Have Aaron gather the people was basically have Aaron perform one last ceremony. And the Lord reminds them, listen, this is the results of a choice you guys made. This is the results of your rebellion. This is a result of your pride. You didn't follow the direction I was giving. You opened yourself up to results of those choices. This is the result of those choices. You're going to die and not go into the promised land. So Aaron does the ceremony. He's fully dressed as a high priest. When he's done with the ceremony, he heads to the mountain fully dressed as the high priest. And he gets up to the side of the mountain. He performs the ceremony or whatever, or maybe vice versa. Doesn't really matter. But on the mountain in front of everyone, so everyone can see it, Moses takes off the vestments, takes off the breastplate, takes off the robe, takes off the hat, puts it all on Eleazar so that everyone understands that the power, the authority of the high priest has been transferred. Now, this part is not in the scripture. This is stuff that is fairly well known and well versed in the Hebrew tradition, and that is He takes Aaron to a cave. He goes to a cave with Aaron. And that again, the sages say that Moses had prepared a very comfortable bed for him or had a bed prepared for him in the cave. And Moses spent whatever amount of time he wanted to there, maybe 5 minutes, maybe an hour. I mean, you got to look at it this way, right? He knows his brother's dying. He's been through a lot. They've experienced a lot. He loves his brother very much. So much so that in essence, he transferred his sons under Aaron's leadership. He's sitting there with his brother and he's talking with him. He knows it's the last time he's going to see him. Those kind of conversations are really intense. I just spoke with a young couple that I've been counseling with, just kind of a point of wisdom, not really official counseling, but I've been meeting with them regularly, and I found out that her dad, they're from foreign country. So anyways, her dad has picked a date as to when he will no longer be here. Whatever you think about that is on you, but and that's fine. But the point was that for me and working with this young lady and her fiance is like, wow, like you actually know when the last day you're going to see your dad. Now he's suffering terribly, and I don't need to tell you what he's suffering from, but he's suffering terribly, and that's a choice that he made to not continue to suffer. So he picked a date, and that's what's going on. Now, I don't know what that's like, but if you knew it was your last time with somebody, right, you approach that time very sacredly, differently, intensely. The emotions are all over the place. So as Moses walks with Aaron, and these are two old men walking up a mountain into a cave, maybe they don't say much at all. Sometimes when you're in those intense moments, the most general thing to say is, I love you and I'm going to miss you. Because to go through it all is overwhelming. But to some, going through it all is exactly what they need to do. I don't know which one Moses was. I don't know which one Aaron was. But I just wanted you to, to kind of soak in that moment. He walks them into a cave. They sit on the side of the bed. Aaron lays down. And Moses probably kisses him. And he walks out. And Moses returns halfway down the mountain or whatever, connects with Eleazar, and they both finish the walk down the mountain. And like I said, tradition says that's when the cloud left, is when Aaron left. Basically signifying, listen, your 40 years are almost up. And you go back to following the direction that Moses brings you. So I think that's why chapter 21 makes a little bit more sense, in that when the cloud is gone, right? Nations that have been tracking these people for the last 40 years, they're looking around going, all right, maybe these guys are susceptible to attack. Maybe we can get some of that rumored gold that came from Egypt. I mean, you can imagine the legends that had been built up now around 40 years of these guys wandering in the wilderness. They always seem to have money. They always seem to get miracles. They never run out of food. They get it delivered every day and every night. They get water out of a rock. Like, these people have something that we want. If we could destroy them, then maybe that God would work for us. If we could get in there, there's, it's more than just, when I grew up, it was Al Capone's vault. Like, if you could find Al Capone's safe, it was filled with money and gold and silver, and turns out it wasn't. But the rumors of the gold and resources, the clothing, the jewelry that had been given to them by the Egyptians 40 years ago had to be tremendous. Anyway, so I think that's where some of these kings get in their head. Hey, let's take a run at these guys now that the cloud is gone. Maybe their God has abandoned them. So the first attack comes from the Canaanites, and we'll read about that. Verse 1: the Canaanite king Arad, who lived in Negev, heard that Israel was coming along the road, and he attacked the Israelites and captured some of them. So some kidnapping took place. Then Israel made a vow to the Lord: if you will deliver these people into our hands, we will totally destroy their cities. The Lord listened to Israel's plea, gave the Canaanites over to them. They completely destroyed them, their towns, and so the place was named Hormah. I just want to point out Israelites' response to being attacked was, let's go kill those guys and then double up and destroy all of their cities. They didn't approach it with, hey, let's spend some time. Let's go to God. Let's figure this out. They went to God and said, we are going to do this. Now God backed them on it. Then in verse, they traveled from Mount Hor along the road to the Red Sea down to go around Edom, but the people grew impatient along the way. They were upset with Moses. They were like, you should have went through Edom. We're bigger and stronger than they are. You should have spent more time with God. They spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? There is no bread. There is no water. We detest this miserable food. Like, there is nothing good. The total victim mentality is now running 100%. The Lord sent venomous snakes among them, and they bit the people, and many of the Israelites died. So whoa. Like, what happened? Well, because they had avoided Edom, right? The people blame Moses, they blame God. And he talks to God, or basically they were accusing him of not talking to God and finding a better way. So we go this way and our enemies attack us. They wanted more substantial food. Most people read that to mean they wanted to eat more in order to get stronger, to get ready for battle. If we're going to have to fight our way through the wilderness now without God, without the fire, without the cloud, then we need to eat more because we need to be ready for battle. So the people sinned, and sin brings death. Moses got a strategy from God, right? He's like, the people go to Moses, we sinned, we spoke against the Lord and against you. Pray the Lord will take the snakes away from us. So Moses prayed for the people. The Lord said to Moses, make a snake, put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. Moses made a bronze snake, put it on a pole, and anyone who was bitten by the snake looked at the bronze snake and lived. So I know that there's lots of correlations people make between being lifted up on a pole, just as it's quoted in the New Testament, just as Moses lifted the snake up on a pole, so the Son of Man be lifted up. And all who look upon him will be saved. So there's a lot of symbolism in what's going on here, but I just want to remind you, God didn't send the snakes because then God would be fighting against himself. God doesn't do that. He's not good and bad. He's all good. It says God is love. Not that he has love, not that he has a characteristic of love, not that one of his major character traits is love. He is love. He can't do both. He can't fight against himself. Jesus said that as well. When they accused him of casting out demons in the name of Beelzebub, he's like, you can't have kingdoms fighting. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. You don't fight against yourself. God doesn't fight against himself. So all of this is going on. Moses makes a snake. People look at it. They look up at it. They're healed. And I'm sure that, they were running that snake all over town. And then it goes on and on and on about where they camped and where they moved and how they moved, and they sang up a song about it. Spring up a well, sing it, in the well of the princess dug, and the nobles sang, and the nobles had the scepters and the staff, and they went into the wilderness, and they just go on and on. As you read these songs of victory, we'll just talk about that. I'll stop with that in verse 20. As you read through these songs, just remember it's a poem about several battles that have taken place, and the lyrics really are not concerned with the details of the battle, and so we don't have the details of the battle. We just know that basically there was basically skirmishes, groups of people that would try to take out an edge, take out a flank, get what they could, rape, pillage, loot, and there's artistic license probably given in the song. But this was the world that they were moving through right now. And it's not that the Lord lifted their protection, it's that they chose to become a violent nation. They made the choice when they were attacked by the Canaanites. They were like, let's respond in kind. It's a choice that a lot of us would have made. It's a choice a lot of churches make, ministries make. Oh, you come against us? Well, then we'll come against you. We'll get our lawyers. You get your lawyers. We'll battle this out in court. Oh, you come against us? We'll come against you. You got to try and get our, permits pulled so that we can't build a bigger church. You're going to come against us in the county commission's office, and we'll come against you. We'll accuse you of things. We'll get people looking into your background. We'll get people looking into your tax returns. It's just a natural way to respond, but it's not the only way to respond. So yeah, let's just end there. We'll end it there. I hope we picked up some good things about the timing of when we do things, and when we come to the end of things, how we end it, and who we end it with. And we are seeing the end of this journey, a 40-year journey. It's a massive thing that they've gone through. These are all people that were under the age of 20 when the journey began. They've seen a lot. They've experienced a lot of death. But they also have had 40 years of training by the priests from the temple, moving all around the tribes. They've had 40 years of training, 40 years of going through ceremonies, making offerings that would give them an opportunity to connect to God personally. They're still choosing not to do that. As we saw here, they turned quickly on Moses when their life got a little harder. So let's not attack them too much, all right? Let's give them some level of understanding, because we would probably be very similar. We would respond in kind rather than going to God and finding out what's the best way for us to deal with this. Because often that would not look like our initial response. All right, everyone. I'll talk to you again next week. We will continue. We will finish up. We'll finish up Numbers next week. I think. Anyways, tune in next week and we'll find out. Have a great day, everyone.
Don't go anywhere. We've got Bob Thoughts.
You know, one of the things that struck me about today's episode was just during times of uncertainty, the enemy makes life even more uncertain. Just does. I think that, sometimes we look at, well, depending on our opinion of God, right? If we think he's a killer and one who manipulates and in essence is the master controller of all things, all of our circumstances, then we look at it and we say, all right, what is God trying to do here? Why would he put us under attack? But the enemy, I think, is always looking to make matters worse. He's never happy until you're dead. He never backs off. He doesn't look at it and say, well, they're having a bad day, so we'll just let them have a bad day. And, we'll come back and try, and see when they start feeling better, we'll make things worse for them. It's always push till you can't go anymore. It's always bring you to a point where you ultimately die. That's what they want, whether it's a death of a relationship or physical death or emotional depression death, whatever. That's what the enemy's always going for. So just, time is really uncertain. Aaron is in this case, dying and dead. We have a new high priest. The pillar of the guiding pillar is gone. The manna stops. All this stuff throws people into a panic, and I don't really blame them. They couldn't cut through the land, take the highway they wanted to. They were threatened with warfare. A lot of uncertainty when you're about to cross over to a different paradigm of life. And that's what happens. I mean, I think that I think there are people who listen to the epic narrative and they think, I want a God who's that good all the time. But that means rethinking all those stories. It means, what am I going to do when, I sit in a small group and somebody says, that God killed all of these people? What am I going to say? What if I don't have any friends if I say it? Like, there's lots of uncertainty, and I get it, and no one's going to rush that. And I don't think God's rushing his people into this either. He knows the vast majority of them haven't been alive for long, 40 years or less. A few of them that were under the age of 20 when they started wandering in the wilderness, right? They're hitting into the 60s or whatever, but even that's pretty young. That's pretty young. So don't look at your uncertain circumstances as some sort of test from God. Most of the time, he's not involved in trying to make matters worse. The enemy is. Not most of the time, all the time. He is not trying to make matters worse. And the enemy is going to take something that really isn't that bad and try and make it seem worse by deception. And I call it just getting really loud. Somebody used to say, oh man, I think it was Georgian Banov.
he probably still says it. Somebody like that said, the devil is a mouse with a blowhorn, a megaphone. He just makes things way bigger than they really are. As part of the deception, he's really good at it. So don't let him destroy your trust and faith in the goodness of God, because God is always good and always has been. And we keep saying that, and we will continue to say that as we continue through these books of the law, which I know are not thrilling books to go through, but it's necessary in the grand scheme of the epic narrative that we are looking at. These will be good points of references for us, all right? Also, don't forget, if you have a chance to give toward my ultimate goal of $3,000 to be one of the major sponsors of the Rethinking God with Tacos conference in September 2025. Now, if you want to go to it, that's great. Check it out, Facebook page. It's in Charlotte. It'll be awesome. Anyways, but if it's past September 2025 and you hear this, just know that any gift you give us is something that we greatly appreciate, because we invest a lot into keeping this thing going. And I like to bless the producer as well as the graphic media person as much as I can. We like to bless them. So if you can give, that'd be great. But if it's before September and you can really help us get to that $3,000 mark, man, just reach out at thebobswitzer@gmail.com, and we will make arrangements for your gift to get to us. All right? Have yourself a good day, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Hey everyone, thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe to this podcast on any platform you use. You can also reach out to Bob for questions or booking at thebobswitzer.com, or email him at thebobswitzer@gmail.com. See you next week, guys.